I call the meeting of the Environment, Natural Resources, Finance and Policy Committee to order. A quorum is present. We have approval of the minutes. Representative Gottfried, have you had a chance to review the minutes?
I have. They look fine to me, but I might defer to the judgment of my esteemed colleague, Representative Jordan.
I see a thumbs up over there, so I think we're fine. Representative Gottfried moves the minutes of March 24th, 2026. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion prevails. The minutes are approved. First item that I'm going to mention is we will not be hearing House File 3426. We are removing that from the agenda today. So we're going to be going straight to House File 4061. Representative Kozlowski, if you'd like to come forward. I do believe I saw them in the side over here. Just 1 second. Okay. Right outside the door. We're in a brief pause as we're waiting for Representative Kozlowski here. There. Representative Kozlowski, welcome to the committee. We're moving a little quicker today. Appreciate you.
On Indian time today.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the committee. Seeing you're not on the committee, I will move House File 4061 before the committee. And Representative Kozlowski, I believe you have an author's amendment. Would you like to briefly explain it?
That's correct. Thank you, Chair Fisher. We have the A1 author's amendment that is just simply seeking to strike the reference to the Northwest Minnesota elk herd that was in the original bill to the Fond du Lac tribal nations. And this is out of making sure that we're upholding tribal sovereignty with the Red Lake Nation, and that will satisfy their concerns as well as allow us to move forward in a good way.
Very good. Any questions for Representative Kozlowski on our amendment? Not hearing any. All in favor of the A1 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And Representative Kozlowski, to your bill as amended.
Great. Thank you again, Chair Fisher, and to the members of the committee. Buju Ozawa Anaquad, Magazine Ndodem, Masabi Kongnan, Dun Jaba, Miguchi Wendam, Omash Kuz. I'm grateful to be back presenting House File 4061, which is the work that we've done around restoring elk to the Fond du Lac Band in northeastern Minnesota. You may recall that thanks to a bipartisan appropriation back in 2025, we had funds that would help the band restore elk to the reservation, and working closely with the DNR and co-management plans, as well as with agriculture and farmers and area community. We're seeking to have an extension, and this bill simply just moves the allowable use of the funds out to 2029 to ensure that we have the practical steps in place to properly implement this bill. So I'll just say that this Fond du Lac Band is ready to move forward. As I referenced in the amendment, that will not be seeking from the Northwest herd out of the Red Lake Nations portion, but those harvested by state license. So once the DNR is ready to do that, the Fond du Lac Band is ready to welcome those elk and begin the process of restoring them as soon as this winter. So just looking for your support to extend this time and the clock to be able to do this in a good way.
Thank you. With that, is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify for or against the bill? Not seeing any. Questions from members? Representative Burkle.
Thank you, Chair Fisher. And thank you, Representative Kozlowski. I'm curious, looking at the amendment, it strikes out the language moving the herd from Northwest Minnesota. So where are these elk going to come from if we're going to extend this to 29. I don't know of anywhere else there's elk to move. So could you explain to me where the elk are coming from?
Representative Kozlowski.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Fisher and Representative Burkle. I also have Reed, who is working on behalf of the band, if you'd like to come in and chime in more if I miss anything. But as has been done with successful implementations of moves of both the Northwest, but also across the United States. And as I mentioned, that this would come out of the share of the DNR's elk that would be harvested by state license, available to state license hunters. So I'll turn it over to my testify support here to get into the specifics.
Welcome to the committee. If you'd like to introduce yourself and begin your testimony, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reed LeBeau on behalf of the Fond du Lac Band. Representative Burkle, to your question, we want to be sort of agnostic as to the location of where the elk are going to come from. That's why we're removing that language. That language was originally put in the first iteration of the legislation, I believe at the insistence of the DNR. That created some consternation with our fellow band members of Red Lake. That's why we're taking it out. But you raise a good point that we have to be very, very careful in where we're bringing them from because of Cervidae chronic wasting issues. And so that's why we need more time to be able to appropriately locate and make sure that we're not bringing anything into the state that would in any way endanger any of the other wildlife.
Representative Burkle.
Thank you, Chair Fisher. So just going back to the original appropriation, where exactly, I mean, where's that money at? Where exactly has it been spent? On what has it been spent? How much is left? Maybe that's for the DNR, but maybe Representative Kozlowski could answer that question for me. Or
Some notes here on that.
Mr. Lowell.
Representative Kozlowski, may you have that information?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair Fisher and Representative, for the question. So far, out of the appropriation, about $500,000 has been spent and used on the 3-acre acclimation pen that was constructed, road improvements, habitat restoration throughout the Fond du Lac Reservation and State Forest in preparation of receiving that elk, as well as extensive investment into training staff, equipment, and trapping supply. And one of the aspects of this bill, as Reed mentioned, is that the band and DNR are working very closely on that northeast elk management co-management plan. And so that's been written and ready for review as well for the members of the committee.
Okay. Representative Burkle.
One more question. I'll be quick. So that would leave approximately 1.8 million left on that appropriation. That
Representative Kozlowski.
correct?
Yes, give or take.
So, Chair
Thank
Fisher,
you.
so
Representative Burkle.
if that's not encumbered, or I don't know what the plan is, but if there's no elk to move, I'm having a hard time understanding the process of, and frankly, if you want to take them all, you can. But I'm just curious that if it makes sense to extend this when we really don't know where the elk are going to come from and how this plan is going to move forward. It almost makes sense to me to wait on this until we have more information.
Would somebody, yes, Mr. LeBeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I don't know off the top of my head exactly what the location would be of where we're going to find them, but I'm happy to follow up with you and get that information. We do have plans to make this immediate. We don't want to drag this out any longer.
Right.
It's just because of all of the prep work that was required working with DNR to get a co-management plan that it took longer than we thought it was going to. But you're right, if we don't wind up spending it all, it does cancel back to the agency, and I mean, we'd love to bring it under budget if we can.
Representative Kozlowski.
Thank you, Chair Fisher and Rep. Burkle. I just wanted to add that today we're also asking for this bill to be laid over, and also out of the talks with the DNR, as well as with the Red Lake Nation and others, that productive conversations led to the establishment and work around an elk working group as well to dive into some of that. But it is that we need that time to be able to do the work, and as my testifier mentioned, that those funds would, if we're ultimately not able to come up with a solution, though we're dedicated to figuring that out, as has been done in other places across the country, then those monies would come back to the state.
Representative Burkle.
One last comment. Thank you, Chair Fisher. Just want to make the point that with all the money being spent here, we have a lot of farmers and grain farmers and livestock owners that are frustrated with the way the depredation account just gets used up every year. So it's frustrating to see that money just sit there. Knowing I know it's an environment, we're talking ag, there's two different things going on here, but just want to vent a little frustration for my folks back home that are struggling to get depredation dollars. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chair Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just, if it's possible, it would be great if DNR could come up on this.
Do we have someone from DNR available? Chair Heinzman, if you'd like to go ahead
Yeah,
with your
thank
question
you.
as he gets set up.
So I think there is some questions on this side about the change in the amendment. Could DNR speak to that and let us know kind of where they stand on that and what their thoughts are?
Welcome to the committee. If you'd like to please introduce yourself and respond to the question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Pat Rivers. I'm the Deputy Director of Division of Fish and Wildlife at the Minnesota DNR.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We are a strong partner with Fond du Lac Band on restoring elk to northeast Minnesota. We want to ensure that any animals that are moved provide a good opportunity for that restoration to be successful and do not providing disease to our resident deer and moose in that Fond du Lac area. In terms of the northwest elk, I think we've got some challenges that we need to work through. I think that is the desired herd from the DNR standpoint. That herd does have a long history of disease testing with good results. If that is not the case, to be honest, I'm not sure at this point where elk might come from, but I do know that the agency is pretty firm on making sure that we minimize risk of importing disease into Minnesota. We do not want to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Chair. Okay. I don't see any other comments or questions at this point in time. Representative Kozlowski, any closing comments?
Thank you, Chair Fisher and members for the discussion. I think we're all aligned in goals and objectives here and allowing us to be able to have this time to work through with DNR and tribal nations and our community partners to do what we originally set out, which is to restore this sacred relative back to the band, which was taken out from overhunting, but also that this opens up opportunities for tribal members as well as non-tribal members of the public to be able to hunt, to be able to be in an environment with elk and do it in a way that mitigates disease, but also mitigates and supports farmers. Soybean farmers we know are definitely impacted by having their crops damaged, but those are all things that were built into the original plan and will be carried forward. And so we just ask for your support in laying this over in consideration. So thank you, Miigwech.
You're welcome. And with that, the House File 4061 as amended is laid over. Next item we have on the agenda is House File 3793, Pursell Bill. Representative Pursell, welcome to the committee. Glad you're here with your bill. I understand that you've got your bill. Would you like to move your bill?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. I move House File 3793 before the committee. I know that we've had this before us before. I do believe you have an author's amendment. Would you like to move the DE4 amendment and explain it briefly?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. The DE4 amendment does a few key things to this bill, which we have heard extensive testimony on previously. First of all, big thanks to our nonpartisan research staff, fiscal, DNR, lots and lots of meetings, including with folks from the other body, trying to figure out what's happening over there. So appreciate all the collaboration that we've gone through. So a couple things that have changed in this bill. We have altered the language from data centers to industrial and commercial use. The DNR had some concerns about the public input requirements, so we're just having people being able to sign up for like a .gov delivery notice, and we'll be able to get folks information about these applications for large water usage. And monthly reporting from the municipalities only apply when it's 100 million gallons per year use, or when it is 50% or more of the municipality's use of water. So that a lot of municipalities then will not need to report. I know there's some concerns around that. Happy to keep working on that after we lay this back over to make sure that that's workable and feasible for the cities, for the DNR. And I think that is mostly the changes that we made to the bill, unless, Ms. Taylor, I'm forgetting anything.
Okay. Vice Chair Pursell moves the DE4 amendment to get the bill in the form the author would like. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries, and the DE4 House File 3793 is now amended. Is there any additional information you'd like to provide the committee at this time, Representative Pursell?
I don't know if the DNR needs to come up, but we've been working, we'll continue to work on this and just make sure that this is catching those large volume water users for commercial and industrial, and only that.
Are there any questions for Vice Chair Pursell? Vice Chair Burkle.
Thank you, Chair Fisher. I've just got a few quick questions, and we've talked about this before, Vice Chair Pursell, but I'm concerned about the striking of the data center in the DE and wondering, as we discussed I think it was last week after committee, but the industrial and commercial consumptive use and the effect on users of more than 50%, we talked about that. I'm still have serious concerns how that's going to affect processors of, across the state, and I'm wondering how many small processing plants are going to be affected that way in small towns. And I'm just worried that the unintended consequence of, I know we hear a lot about ag's too big, agriculture it's too consolidated. These are the kinds of things that cause that consolidation. And we had that discussion, but I'd like you just to comment a little bit on that. And we're laying this over so we can have more conversation. But I really have serious concerns about that for small processors in small towns.
Vice Chair Pursell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Co-Chair Burkle, Co-Vice Chair Burkle for the question. Happy to keep in conversation with you. We attempted to make this, it doesn't apply to the agriculture. So it's the industrial and commercial. And I think maybe the DNR has statistics about existing operations, how many applications they get per year. Some of the examples you and I talked about, they don't take the 100 million annual gallons. And so those do not require that monthly reporting right now. So I don't know if there's any additional information that the DNR cares to chime in with.
Vice Chair Burkle, would you like the DNR to come up?
No, I think I'm good. I just wanted to reiterate the concerns I have and the slippery slope we're on. If the 100 million I get, and I see where you're at on the bill, on the DE, but just a conversation to continue. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? Hearing none. Vice Chair Pursell, any further comments on your bill?
Thank you for getting this bill in the shape that I would like it. And, if 100 million isn't the number, Co-Vice Chair Burkle, happy to look at what we think a reasonable number is. And thank you for helping me get this bill to the next phase. So thank you.
Thank you. With that, Vice Chair Pursell renews her motion that House File 3793 as amended be laid over. The bill is laid over. With that, we will move on. We will go to the Falconer bill. We are going to jump around a little bit here. So we will go to House File 3896. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Representative Falconer, welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to move your bill?
Yes, sir. I'd like to move 3896, and just also acknowledging some wild rice samples are being handed out.
Thank you. Representative Falconer moves their House File 3896 before the committee, and I see you have a DE1 amendment. Would you like to go ahead and explain your DE1 amendment?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So the DE1 amendment is an example of, I thought I had a simple idea, and then as it started exploration, it quickly became a complicated idea. And so trying to get back to a simple idea, the original language would have potentially inadvertently criminalized people that for reasons that they weren't aware. And so just acknowledging and thanks for the conversations with Chair Heinzman and Representative Gilman, kind of illustrating that, my original idea is people shouldn't put motors through water ice beds, but if people don't know, they're not aware, they don't have the information, we could turn innocent bystanders into criminals, and we're not at all trying to do that. So the language now is pivoting from that into more of an educational awareness of what's the importance of wild rice, why we shouldn't have motors in it, and going toward a scenario in which we're not criminalizing anybody, not issuing any citations or whatever. I will acknowledge that there is still, and thanks to Ms. Taylor for flagging this, a little bit of work to still ensure that, get the language nested somewhere else so it doesn't point to that. So currently it still does technically, but the intent is as we go forward to make sure that that is not the case.
Okay, very good. So this is for getting the bill into the shape that the author would like. All those in favor of the DE1 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The DE1 amendment is adopted to House File 3896. Representative Falconer, to the overall bill, is there additional information you'd like to present us?
Sure. Okay, so just kind of want, well, thank you again for hearing this. Thank you, everybody, for hearing this. This is very much a bill that is a work in progress, but I feel like we're starting to get to it, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this today. House File 3896 is, the intent is really just to make it clear that we shouldn't drive motorboats through wild rice beds or have excessive or damaging wake within 150 feet of a wild rice bed to help preserve that. For those that aren't aware, wild rice is an annual crop. It's not perennial, so it has to reseed itself every year. And when it typically grows in 2 to 3 feet of water in a substrate on the lake bed that's muddy, and the seeds fall down, they get buried in the mud, and then they germinate the next spring. That sensitive nature of what the lake bed is that can support wild rice is particularly vulnerable to disturbance. And so, and I've seen it myself, if a boat drives through a wild rice bed, the next spring, typically you can just see a line of a dead zone because the lake bed was disturbed and unable for things to grow. And that's really what we're trying to solve here. So that is the entire intent of the bill. And like I said, again, really want the educational parts of this for the committee or for the agencies are to have materials created that enforcement officers could have on hand. I'm liking it very much to the Loon Aware program, where if you've seen those, the pamphlets have a picture of a loon and just guidelines of stay 150 feet away. If they're nesting on shore, a little bit even further, and if you are within proximity, to slow down, go around, and avoid. And so it's kind of that sort of informational awareness that we want to make sure that boaters, who I know want to be responsible and not damage the surrounding environment, just have that information, that awareness, so that when they are out near wild rice, that they're aware, they know what it looks like, and to do as best as they can to avoid any degradation or damage.
Okay, very good, thank you. What we'll do is we'll go to the test fires right now, and then we'll come back to members for questions. So with that, the first person I have is Leanna Goose. Good afternoon and welcome to the committee. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, who you may be with, and then please start your testimony.
Thank you. Bonjour, Nindanawe Magnadug, Makakakwe, Nindijana Kaz, Makweni Dudame, Gasaga, Squajame Cog, Nindunjabab. Hello, my relatives. My name is Leanna Goose. My clan is Bear. I am from Leech Lake Nation. I am an Anishinaabe mother, organizer, and co-facilitator of the Rise and Repair Alliance space. I am using Anishinaabe today to show that there are multiple cultures here in Minnesota that exist, and all of the legislative actions that we brought forward this year are aimed at creating a respectful coexistence across two cultures. This bill is not a call to end boating, but it is a call for responsible boating practices. I wouldn't drive my car through a farmer's cornfield to get to a blueberry patch, because I respect that as a food source. We're asking that the state and its citizens respect wild rice as a treaty-protected food source that is in danger at this moment, and to just avoid driving motors through wild rice beds as it causes major damage. This is not a big ask, and I would just like to put things in perspective for our legislators today. There are over 11,000 lakes here in Minnesota. DNR notes that there are 13 million acres of surface water in Minnesota, of which 3 million are suitable for fishing. According to one estimate by the DNR, there are over 64,000 acres of wild rice in our state in a good year. This means wild rice covers 0.49% of surface waters here in Minnesota. There is enough space for both fishing, recreating, and respecting cultural food sources. And I just want to say that that is not a lot of wild rice compared to what once was. I can tell you that in my lifetime, I have witnessed the loss of wild rice firsthand, and scientific reports and the governor's task force on wild rice also recognize this same decline in abundance. The rice beds that I'm introducing my children to are not the same rice beds that I once knew. They are struggling. Tribes are working hard to restore them and to make sure Monoman is still here for our children and the next generations. On Leech Lake, our tribal college and resource management program is working on a research project called Protecting Monoman for the Next 7 Generations. So for the past few summers, I have sat with Monoman listening and learning how we as humans can help it survive. I've watched boats drive straight through the rice beds we are trying to help on our reservation. One afternoon, my son and I were harvesting Monoman for reseeding in this project, and I passed out a picture to just show that, show my children and show the work that we're doing together as a community. So we were out there harvesting Monoman for reseeding along with others from our community. And while we were out there, a duck hunter drove directly through the rice bed we were working to protect. Then we heard gunshots. I had to explain to my son that what that person was doing was harming the very thing that he loves and depends on. By driving through the rice bed, he was destroying the plants that reseed themselves and create new plants the following year. What he was doing was illegal. Leech Lake has regulations that do not allow hunting in rice beds during harvest. But beyond illegal, it was dangerous. This danger is made worse by early teal season, which allows hunting at the same time as the harvesting of Monoman. This overlap is not just a conflict, it is a serious safety risk. It puts the future of both duck hunting and Monoman harvesting at risk. And more importantly, it puts people at risk, like my son. Think about it this way. Imagine you are in a grocery store getting the food you rely on, and suddenly a go-kart speeds by you and someone starts shooting. That would never be allowed in state law. It would never be considered acceptable. So why is it here? When my son and I are gathering food, we shouldn't have to worry about getting hurt by irresponsible boating practices or getting shot. That day, my son told me, "Mom, I love Monoman." And I told him, "Me too." That is what we mean when we say Monoman is our relative. We love it like a brother or a sister or a kid. Right now, tribes are working to bring back a relative that is struggling to survive. At the same time, the state allows that work to be undone. We are asking that these changes happen in a good way through educational and this good neighbor statute, which does not aim to create any fines. It just asks that boaters be good neighbors to Monoman and that we respect one another's cultures here in Minnesota. We are good neighbors to the boaters, and we are asking that they just be good neighbors to us. Monoman is a treaty-protected food, and treaty rights are the supreme law of the land underneath the United States Constitution. We cannot prioritize one way of life over another. When that happens, it becomes environmental racism. There is enough room for all of us to share these waters safely and respectfully. Protecting wild rice is not just about protecting one culture. It is about protecting our waters for everyone. Monoman helps keep our waters healthy. It absorbs excess nutrients, improves water quality, and provides food and habitat for fish, ducks, and more than 17 species listed by the Minnesota DNR as species of greatest conservation need. When we protect Monoman, we protect everything connected to it, including each other. Please work to pass House File 3896 today. Miigwech Bizendawi. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for your testimony today. Next, I have Lieutenant Colonel Robert Gorchecki. Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee. I'll keep my comments brief. For the record, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Robert Gorecki, Assistant Director of Enforcement for the Minnesota DNR. The DNR truly appreciates the authors and others' efforts to protect wild rice across the state, particularly with educating the public on what wild rice looks like and its importance. However, the DNR has concerns with this bill in its current form. We have been talking with the author of the bill, and we recognize that there's still operational and administrative work that still needs to be done. This includes the DE1 amendment and our concerns with some of the language, including the legal definition of what uncultivated wild rice bed is and potential enforcement actions for the violations. We are committed to continuing to work with all interested parties on ways to protect wild rice in public waters while still balancing responsible recreational boating and natural resource use for all Minnesotans. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify for or against the bill? Welcome to the committee. Please come to the table. Please introduce yourself and then begin your testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I'll be really brief. My name is Evan Mulholland. I'm a lawyer at the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, and I'm here in support of this bill. Our organization is in support of this bill, and we stand with the Rise and Repair Alliance here in support of this bill. I hope that we can continue to work with the author and get this done, and I ask for all of your support. I think this is an opportunity for all Minnesotans to really encourage responsibility and responsible treatment of wild rice. It's not just a thing, it's a being, and we need to be responsible for each other and for all the beings here. So that's the end of my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to be here and for your testimony. Is there, I see somebody else. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come to the committee today. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Hi, Bonjour, everyone. Makade Makwin Dudum, Anishinaabe and Dunjaba, Mikanakuji and Iniweg, Gina Peltier and Dijnakash. And so my name is Gina Peltier. I'm with the Rise and Repair Alliance, and I'm testifying in support of this bill. I'm here to let you all know, for those who don't, the Anishinaabe have harvested wild rice for thousands of years in a very respectable manner. We would use our canoes and a push pole to gently guide us through these wild rice water lake beds. And for thousands of years, the rice have thrived and have helped us thrive. And when we're out there, we harvest it in a very respectable way. We have our knockers and our pullers, and when we pull in and gently knock the rice off, we say, Chimigwich Manuman, thank you so much, Manuman. And so as we've been capable to have these respectable relationships with a thriving food source that helps us all be healthy, we are capable of doing it today. And so with this bill, I really hope that we can use this as a starting point to really help us show our communities how serious we are about protecting not only wild rice, but each other. Because this is something that can help not only our health, but our economy here in Minnesota. And so I want to thank you all. And another thing, when we are out harvesting, and so I'm from Turtle Mountain, that's over in North Dakota, but we are sister tribes with Red Lake. My grandparents were able to harvest wild rice. My father, my uncles, and aunties have not been able to because of the disappearance of it. When my relatives invited me over to harvest with them the first time, even though I was so sore, it was so healing. And as you all know, doing this work is so stressful. Every time harvest season starts, I look forward to it because it rejuvenates me. And I've seen so many people come out and say the same thing. And so months beforehand, I exercise and get into the mood. I'm really hoping we can find opportunity this fall to have you guys come out and harvest with us and really experience how respectful and healing that process can be. So hit us up if you guys want to come out. We'll most definitely have you guys come out, feed you, and show you how beautiful it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Peltier. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else that would like to testify? Not seeing anyone else, we will move to questions from members. First is Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Chair. And so I have a few questions, a couple comments. So thank you for having a conversation on the House floor about this. I did go back to my district and have some conversations with local farmers, and I'm curious about a couple things. I've heard things like wild rice is in danger. It's a being. I've heard the words environmental racism, and I'm just curious: is it the boats? Is it the watercrafts that are causing some of these things to happen? You said that you've seen a strip or a line through it. I think of, like, for example, the hooded McGanns or different types of ducks. I love hunting. Are there animals, fish, or wildlife that also harvest wild rice besides humans?
Sure.
Thank you, Chair.
Representative Falconer.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you for the question. Wild rice is really a keystone species in the North and the Great Lakes region. So many animals do use it for nutrition, for food, and for habitat and shelter. It's just in my research, bass, walleye, and northern pike all lay their eggs within wild rice beds. Ducks, waterfowl eat the seeds as they're migrating through, following through, and so yeah, it's one of these plants that provides food for animals, for humans, and it also does quite a bit for the quality of the water. It reoxygenates the water body that fish need to survive as well, and helps absorb nutrients that lead to algae blooms. That can disrupt, the quality of the water of the lake, as well as then the algae blooms themselves that can kill fish. And so really, part of this is an argument of, if you like fishing, you should love wild rice, because it really does promote a healthy fish stock and clean lake support, as well as then providing food, like you're asking about, for waterfowl and humans alike.
Okay, Representative Gilman.
So a follow-up to that, thank you for that. So of our, 10 to 14,000 lakes, I don't know if this is a question for the DNR or not. How many lakes do we know of that actually have wild rice in it? I know that they talked about 64,000 acres, which is, under 1% or 0.5%. Do we know where it's located?
I've got somebody from the DNR coming up. If we could have them give a shot at this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I don't know the exact number, but most central and northern Minnesota shallow waters, body waters that we have, are capable of holding wild rice, and whether that's, harvestable amounts or not, but it would be quite a few lakes at least have it present some years.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Gorchak.
And just
Representative Falconer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's also, just a follow-up information, there is quite the project going on right now at the DNR to inventory which lakes, which water bodies have wild rice. There's an appropriation given last year for that. I think when I was talking to DNR, it's supposed to be done 2028, or that's the target kind of timeline. But there are maps available on DNR, Ag Site, and MPCA for what is known right now. And so there is some information, but that is being worked on to compile it for a more overall picture.
Representative Gilman.
Thank you. I'm going to continue with this because this is an interesting topic if we have a couple minutes. So ballpark, if we don't have till 2028, the final report or a report coming through on what that looks like, how many people do you think in Minnesota or that come again, to come tour here in the summertime and enjoy the lakes, how many people do you think know or could recognize what a wild rice bed or area looks like?
Representative Falconer.
I mean, conjecture, it'd be guessing. I don't know. Do you have a turn over to testifier to, yeah?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Mr. Chair, Representative, we have approximately 650,000 registered motorized watercraft in Minnesota. Not sure exactly how many out of states do we have. My opinion is that I think at 150 feet while moving, the average boater would have a difficult time identifying wild rice compared to even reed canary grass, to be honest with you.
Representative Gilman.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I would concur that folks would have a very tough time. I'm blessed to have all kinds of different things that I can use on the lakes, our public waters. And hearing testimony earlier about Leech Lake and knowing that it already is illegal, I believe is what was told, to go in and use, or to go through that area, and that people are still doing that, and it's dangerous. So I'm just curious why we're not doing like more of an education campaign, doing more conversations around that before we go and pop in a law, again, that our DNR is not supportive of. I love the idea of local control, again, throughout the state, different areas depending upon water levels and what's going on with things that, our counties, our folks can make a no-wake zone on a lake at any given day. And people are respectful of that because we know the impact of just water levels and the impacts of that. And we know that we can still have fun on the lake when things come down. So I'm very concerned that this bill goes, again, it feels like we're putting the cart before the horse on not having enough information and then education around this. I'm grateful for the testifiers that did come today, and would be curious if you've noticed when you talk about generational harvesting of wild rice, if it's what it's all related to. Is it water quality? Is it again? Is it animals? Is it Gosh, we were talking about elk earlier. I'm curious if deer and elk would love to go in there and eat wild rice. It's so delicious. But I'm wondering if it's animals, if it's the fish and waterfowl, or what's happening with that, or if you're seeing a direct correlation to anything in particular.
Representative Falconer, it looks like one of your testifiers is coming back up too.
Yeah. So I don't want. There's a lot that is right now the declining acreage spread of wild rice is due to a lot of factors: climate change, the agricultural runoff, water levels changing due to 100-year events of rainstorms that are occurring much more frequently these days. There's a lot of different factors, and this is just one of them that could potentially hurt specific areas, but it is also one that should be, when you compare it to climate change, a lot more easy to fix, and that's why also to address the other point you made, this bill, from its original incarnation to now the DE1 is really focusing into educational public awareness sort of bill, and that this is something that we're trying to do. We're not trying to criminalize. We're not trying to make sure the people that don't know that get inadvertently cited. So I feel like that's where we're trying to go with this. So I do appreciate the sentiments as we talked about previously, and happy to keep working with you and others on it to get into a spot that we can be comfortable with.
Okay. Ms. Goose, did you want to add some more comments to that?
Yeah, can I please? I talked about the research project that I'm working on, like invasive species are encroaching on our wild rice beds. Climate change is wreaking havoc on our rice here in Minnesota. One study notes that wild rice available for off-reservation harvest is decreasing by 5 to 7% annually in some places in the Great Lakes region. So that is a really, really scary number to me. If you look out 2 generations, like we could be at risk of losing Monoman if we don't do anything differently. So I just wanted to bring forward that fact that like this plant is struggling, and it's because of humans, and we have the ability to fix this problem, and we can choose that good path, Minnow Bimmonteziwin. So I just wanted to put that out there, and this is mainly an educational statute, as Falconer explained, and it's my understanding that like the DNR is interested in doing education too, so maybe these things can coincide. I know that it takes often years to pass a bill, so maybe the education plan can go alongside with the work that we're doing here. But yeah, I appreciate all your good questions, and I just wanted to add to that. Miigwech.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Representative Finke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Falconer, for your bill and all of the testifiers who came to testify at the Capitol today. I just want to respond first to some of Representative Gilman's comments or questions. You know, we don't have to scratch our heads about why habitat loss is a crisis. Habitat loss is a crisis because of human development, because of agriculture, because of climate change. I mean, I am sure that the fish that eat the rice are not responsible for putting the existence of this plant at risk, right? I mean, we know what's going on. Second, I want to say that I did do some research about the amount of, you know, wild rice over time, over history, right? And it, we'll just say it was vastly popular and common, right? I was just learning that where we are now used to be wild rice lakes, right? Like what used to be here is gone, and it is gone because of people doing the things that developing people do. So I don't want us to think that this is a problem that may or may not be, you know, observable. It is observable. We know why it's happening. And finally, the reason we should be protecting it is because people can't recognize it. The reason that we protect endangered species is because the public isn't aware that these endangered species are endangered and we need to be protecting them. That's the entire concept of conservation and wildlife management and protection, is that it does not, we should educate, we absolutely should educate everyone about wild rice, and we should do a survey as detailed as the DNR can possibly do between now and 2028. But if we're going to lose another 14% of the native wild rice over the next few years while that happens, that's a problem. So I actually wish we were, you know, if we had more time to talk about this, I'd love the DNR to actually explain why they don't want to protect this rice, because you didn't. You know, you said you have problems with the bill, but the way that we will wait for this all to get done, like we've seen that a million times, it'll just be gone in the meantime. So I appreciate this. You know, this isn't my culture and my space, but I understand why we want to protect the things that we believe in and that are beloved to our communities, and I think that we should do it.
Okay. Thank you. I'm looking to see, are there other, not seeing, Chair Heintzman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had just one question looking at the bill, and since DNR is up, I'm just going to ask. It would seem to me, just reading through the language, that there would be a cost, and I'm wondering if we're anticipating that. And maybe we need to be thinking about a check to see what that might be. So,
Lieutenant Colonel.
Mr. Chair, Chair Heintzman, yes, there would certainly be a cost for enforcing if this passed as is. But more importantly, it would potentially take conservation officers away from other really important natural resource work as well. As you know, our resources are obviously limited, but certainly a cost.
Chair Heintzman.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm thinking maybe if we see this again, there should be a fiscal note. Representative Falconer, I'll just close with a few comments. and that would be, I want to just thank you for reaching out to myself and others. My kids learned about wild rice as they tried to find ducks. And that was sort of a revelation to them that if you go to where the food is, you're probably going to find some. And then all of a sudden, they started to really care. And I hope that hunting groups and other organizations could be pulled in. I love the educational component to this. I think that would probably, over time, have more impact than the fines or law enforcement side of it, because it's pretty easy, especially our young people, as they're out on the water. And I'll just use us as an example, visiting with conservation officers in their kayaks as they come up to our blind, to have those just right there conversations. And a lot of young people aren't getting out and enjoying that opportunity and getting that education to be able to identify the plant, to know what it is. And sometimes something like hunting is that gateway. And I think that there's a lot of Minnesota kids are missing that. So that's just a comment. And as well, just conclude with that then branched into, now I want to go ricing. Now that I know what the plant looks like, go and bring this home and enjoy a meal that we were able to collect together. There's so much here, along with potentially, I think, collaboration in a bipartisan way to make it easier to introduce wild rice in places where it could be successful. And I've seen places like that all over my own district, and it's pretty complicated, and we're going to need help with that. So the educational component, along with looking for easy steps for people to then be a part of making sure that there's more. So good hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Falconer. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Chair Heinzman. Representative Falconer, thank you for bringing the bill forward. This is important to get this conversation going. As you're hearing, this is a bipartisan thing where we're looking at, we want to protect and grow wild rice for the future. I appreciate the work that you're doing on it. Look forward to you continue doing the work and engaging folks on all sides. We'll look forward to the opportunity to have more discussions on this as we move forward. With that, are there any final comments you'd like to make on your bill?
I mean, there's a lot. I love wild rice. I just think that it's just really cool that we have this plant, that we have a food you can find in the grocery store on the shelf right now. That's the exact same thing as it was 1,000 years ago. It hasn't been genetically modified. Through selective agriculture, we haven't changed it anyway. I mean, I know there's a cultivated rice versus natural uncultivated rice, but you can get the same thing that's available now as what was available 1,000 years ago, and that's just increasingly rare, and it's just kind of mind-blowing. That for a host of reasons, I just hope that we can work together to protect our state grain. So thank you for the conversation. I would love to work with anybody that wants to. I've already been talking with a couple of tribes to see if there is a way that we can get people up to go ricing. I think that'd be an incredibly valuable experience when I get some details kind of fleshed out and we get a sense of when the season is going to be, when it's harvestable. We'll reach out and see what we can set up. So really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Continue work on it and look forward to more discussions.
With that, Representative Falconer renews their motion that House File 3896 as amended be laid over. The bill is laid over as amended. With that, we will now go to Representative Hollins. Representative Hollins, let me get to my script here. You have the House File 1426. I will move House File 1426 before the committee. I believe you have an author's amendment, which is the DE1 amendment. I will move the DE1 amendment. Could you please explain? There we go. Representative Hollins.
Sorry, Mr.
No,
Chair.
that's okay. This is to get the bill in the shape that the author would like. Would you like to explain the DE1 amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I mean, I'll save most of my comments for the introduction, but the DE amendment is significantly different than the original bill. The original bill was a comprehensive e-waste collection bill, and this significantly narrows it to just batteries, and in particular loose batteries, not embedded batteries. So, and I can go into my full thing, but let's adopt the amendment if possible.
Okay, certainly. We have the DE1 bill, DE1 amendment to House File 1426 in front of us. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion prevails. The DE1 is amended, is adopted, excuse me, the DE1 amendment is adopted. Representative Hollins, to your bill.
Thank you, Chair Fisher. Thank you, Chair Heinzman and committee members. I appreciate your time today. We're here to discuss batteries because they are rapidly becoming more common in everyday life, powering everything from small household items to larger equipments and even houses sometimes. It's really important technology, and it is only growing more important and more prevalent. But at the same time, as batteries contain valuable materials and toxins that need to be properly managed, something that Minnesota recognized 30 years ago when it established its current stewardship program. Today, however, our laws have not kept pace with the modern battery technology. That gap is most clearly seen in the increasing fire risks associated with the batteries, impacting businesses, public infrastructures, and families across the state. As evidence of this, I've handed out my little flyer, which is some of the local destruction that has been caused by batteries being incorrectly disposed of. In that, you can see a waste management company truck that's been completely engulfed in flames, a Eureka recycling truck that also caught on fire, the Rice County landfill fire that was started by a battery which burned for almost a week and caused the neighboring individuals to have to stay in their homes to avoid breathing poisonous fumes, as well as the complete destruction of a DEMCON transfer station in Blaine just a couple of years ago that was worth $20 million. So all of these fires were caused by inappropriately discarded batteries because appropriate battery disposal locations are few and far between. House File 1426, as amended, builds on Minnesota's existing leadership by establishing a modern statewide battery collection, a battery stewardship program, where producers fund and manage the system to ensure safe collection and recycling. I do want to highlight three important things. The first one is that this is a narrower proposal than we originally introduced. It doesn't address electronic waste or embedded batteries, like I said, and that work is ongoing. But given the complexity and the timeline that we have, this bill focuses on loose batteries as a practical first step. Secondly, the proposal reflects significant collaborations with stakeholders. Local governments, private sector, collectors, and industry have all made compromises to move towards a workable system. While there are national models being discussed, this proposal reflects Minnesota's existing system and aims to improve that system without creating an unnecessary disruption. And then third, they had a Senate hearing on this bill just 20 or 30 minutes ago, where the Senate author was able to add a second amendment onto the bill that addressed several of the battery industry's concerns. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get that amendment drafted and submitted in time for you all to see, but I wanted to make sure that folks know that we're committed to continuing to work with all the stakeholders who are involved in this to get us to a place where we're all comfortable. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to my testifiers.
Certainly. Thank you, Representative Hollins. The first person I have on the testimony list here is Lucy Mullany. If you'd like to come forward, please. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself, and we have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Wow, it's so much time. Hi, thank you, Chair, members of the committee, and Representative Hollins for her leadership on this issue. I'm Lucy Mullany. I'm the Vice President of Policy at Eureka Recycling. I'm also a member of the Minnesota Zero Waste Coalition and Recycling Electronics for Climate Action, or RECA. Eureka is one of the largest recyclers here in Minnesota. We process about 100,000 tons of mostly residential recycling each year. Sorting that into about 15 commodities that are sent to manufacturers here in Minnesota and the Midwest region. Recyclers like us are a critical part of our domestic manufacturing supply chain. But batteries placed in the recycling cart are threatening our operations, our team members, and our communities. If you come down to our facility, you'll notice that we actually don't use the word fire. We call it an F word or a thermal event, if we're being polite. So there was a thermal event on the tip floor or an F word in our main sort house. This is our superstitious attempt to prevent more of them from happening, but it's not working. We are experiencing, on average, about 20 fires a year, or 1 to 2 fires a week at sort of the height. These toxic fires spread quickly through highly flammable paper and plastic. When they happen in a truck, or what we call a hot load, a driver needs to find the safest place to dump their material, usually in a residential neighborhood, and try to do it safely. This has resulted in serious injuries, including third-degree burns, but this is something that we're dealing with on a weekly basis. As a result of increased batteries in the stream, insurance costs have skyrocketed, making it tough for us to stay in business. In addition to having trouble finding insurance, we're also paying for the cost of replacing and repairing damaged equipment, health costs for our employees, fire rover safety equipment, and training. Without action, this problem will continue to threaten Minnesota's recycling system and the workers that keep it running. We hope you can advance this legislation this year and look to advancing electronics recycling in future years, which would include embedded batteries. And I welcome you out to Eureka's facility. I do tours. I can take you around myself so that you can see our amazing team in action. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Kirk Kadelka. If you'd like to come forward, please. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Kirk Kadelka. I'm Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Just to save time, and many others will talk about the perspective from the collectors and the solid waste industry. Just want to highlight a couple other things really briefly here. One is the legislature created the Critical Materials Recovery Advisory Task Force, and it recently this year put together a report on how to make sure that we capture those materials so that we have it here for U.S. production and manufacturing. It had a number of recommendations, including pillar number 2, which revolved around consumer recycling, and talked about the need for public education and awareness campaigns, recommendations for drop-off being easy, free for consumers to recycle products containing critical materials, and consumer labeling. That's what this bill does. It provides and makes sure that things like lithium and that are captured and kept in the United States for its manufacturing. In addition, I just want to draw attention to current law. Rechargeable batteries today cannot be put into disposal. They can't be put in the trash. And so there does need to be another place for consumers to bring that. We have ad hoc locations right now to do it. What this bill does is create a uniformity for across the state and provides funding for it, whether it's our local units of government and paying by taxpayers or by private entities to help them in this effort. This program looks to reduce those costs. Instead of having those different ad hoc pieces, we're bringing efficiency and economies of scale to this to help reduce the cost overall of providing this necessary service, given the law does prevent them from going into the waste because of the dangers that other testifiers will elaborate on more. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Dave Potter. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself, begin your testimony, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. My name is David Potter, and I'm the president of Global E-Waste Solutions. We are Minnesota's only eSteward certified electronics processor located in Plymouth. We process almost 1 million pounds of material on an annual basis and thousands of pounds of batteries. We adhere to a strict no export of hazardous materials, no landfill of hazardous materials, and no incineration policy. On an annual basis, Minnesota generates hundreds of millions of pounds of e-waste, of which about 25% is actually collected. The rest is generally landfilled, which emphasizes the enormous need for a movement on an e-waste bill as well. Most of these devices obviously contain embedded batteries, but we're not here to talk about e-waste, but rather discuss HF 1426, which is separated from the largest e-waste bill. I do believe, and am a strong supporter, that this will educate the public and expand collection sites across the state, thus resulting in a much larger capture rate. I do believe that this will make battery handling and safety storage much safer by using a one-drum type solution. I do believe that this bill will make battery transport much safer and overall mitigate the risk of thermal events well throughout our entire transportation system. This legislation, and I'm proud to say, it promotes the reclamation, reclaiming those precious earth materials So we are less dependent on foreign nations and foreign suppliers. Because batteries are rarely have a reuse component, I strongly believe that having a pro take possession of these batteries will help to subsidize the program with the profits from the recycling and result in the most efficient system that will ultimately cost less per pound than our current status quo. This overall will save the taxpayers thousands of dollars on an annual basis. Minnesotans are ready for this. They want to see victory from our legislative body. Please be that victory. In a recent survey at our great Minnesota get-together, the State Fair, 750 individuals out of 1,000 surveyed clearly stated that the most important reason to properly recycle batteries, for them to recycle batteries, was to keep toxins out of the air and the soil and the water. So in closing, I'd like to speak on behalf of those who have no voice in our forum, and I'll quote the late, great John Denver by say, let's do it for the wind, for the water, and for the wood, and for those who live there too. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Tammy Walhoff. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Tammy Walhoff, and I'm the Director of Lutheran Advocacy Minnesota. Chair Fisher, Chair Heinzman, and members, Lutheran Advocacy Minnesota is a ministry of all 6 Minnesota Lutheran synods. Those synods are made up of more than 1,000 ELCA congregations and well over 600,000 baptized members statewide. Our statement on care of creation, passed overwhelmingly by the church-wide assembly in 1993, states that we of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America are deeply concerned about the environment locally and globally. It goes on to say that we see the despoiling of the environment as nothing less than the degradation of God's gracious gift. As such, we support the new language of HF 1426 and hope you will recognize its importance to stewardship and care for both the earth and its people. Lutheran Advocacy Minnesota and many congregations have been working for more than 3 years on the broader electronic waste issue. Initially, in leading forums, I'd see a dawning realization that people have regarding the risks of disposing batteries in their trash or recycling, particularly the fire danger to landfills, infrastructure, workers, and all of us who may be exposed to resulting toxins. Even many confess to having improperly tossed batteries from hearing aids, key fobs, and other such items. Now I'm often asked why the legislature hasn't completed the legislation necessary to address these costs and concerns. We hope that you will address the broader electronic waste issues in the future, but for now we're hopeful that free collection of batteries will soon be available across the state. Once the stewardship organizations are in place, we intend to educate through our church networks and could envision different church groups like Women of the ELCA being interested in helping to organize collection events. We'd like to thank Representative Hollins for her leadership, Maria Jensen for her dogged work with the various stakeholders, Clean Water Action, and our many other partners for supplying some of the facts and information that we borrow in educating congregations, and especially the people organizing local action in their churches through our Lutheran letter campaigns. We'd like to thank all of you, too, for listening and hopefully passing HF 1626. And as I said, we also hope that you will address the broader electronic waste issues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Mark Bulish. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself, and then we have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mark Bulish. I am Executive Director of PRBA, the Rechargeable Battery Association. PRBA represents stakeholders in and around the battery industry, everything from the producers of materials that go into batteries, obviously into electronic devices as well, manufacturing, and all the way through end of life. So we represent really the broad stakeholders. We support the safe and responsible management of our products at end of life, and to that end, we maintain a model bill for when states become interested in this topic. We have been working very closely with MPCA and other stakeholders in this process, and that discussion has been very collaborative and productive. And frankly speaking, the model bill that we have and a lot of the language in front of you is very similar. Coming into the discussion today, I had 4 issues where there were differences. 2 of those have been addressed with the amendment that dropped last night that dealt with the inclusion of recalled batteries and the home pickup of products. So those, I'll leave those out of this testimony because they have been addressed, which leaves 2 different items of concern that we have. The first one deals with the inclusion of large format batteries. The language in the bills that are the model bill and the bill in front of you really was geared more towards what we call portable batteries, so small and medium format. Think of that, small batteries are ones you can put in your pocket. Medium format, you can still carry them, but you'd have to have really big pockets, but you can still carry them. And that's converse to large format batteries, which can literally be up to the size of the table or even larger that's in front of me. Those products have a very unique distribution and supply chain, different user interaction and collection infrastructure. And one important distinction, too, is those batteries also have second, sometimes even third lives. The language in the portable side doesn't really deal with that because those batteries really don't get used in second and third lives like these large batteries do. So because the language was really crafted more towards the small and medium, and it's not that we don't think that those batteries can or should be included in some type of program, they can and should. We just think it should be done in a different vehicle because those batteries have a very unique infrastructure that I mentioned, and we want to make sure that it gets right. So to be clear, we're not saying they shouldn't be, it just should be separately done. The other issue deals in the reimbursement language with just one word that's in there, structures. The collection and recycling program can and will provide all the materials that are needed, such as boxes, packing material, drums, all of that, all of those items. But the word structures to us implies buildings. And we don't think that the battery collection program should be buying buildings in this particular case. And then lastly, we have been working behind the scenes on a separate bill on this that in collaboration with the electronics group. That language follows exactly the model bill language that we have. And that language is harmonizes with 8 states, the District of Columbia, and up to 20 states that are working on that right now. And as I mentioned, brings in electronics. So thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have David Pursell. Welcome to the committee. If you'd like to please introduce yourself, and we have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the opportunity to testify today, and also thank you, Representative Hollins, for the bill. My name is David Pursell. I serve as a LeSueur County Commissioner and also the Vice Chair of the Association of Minnesota Counties Environment and Natural Resources Committee. Counties have statutory responsibilities to manage solid waste, protect public health, and ensure public safety. Batteries are increasingly complicating those responsibilities. Fires at recycling facilities and transfer stations are no longer rare. They are happening regularly, as you have heard. In some areas, fires occurring once or twice a month have forced changes to collection programs. And these are not small incidents. You've heard it referred to earlier, but if we look at just some counties outstate, in Becker County, a fire caused over $800,000 worth of damage. In Koochiching County, another resulted in $500,000 in losses. You heard the Rice County landfill already referred to. And even locally within our county, and we're about an hour southwest of here, we're in a partnership with 2 neighboring small counties for doing recycling work. And in the last few years, we've had 3 different trucks burn up. 2 of the 3 were total losses. And it's not just commercial haulers. I live in a small town. Our small town owns their own garbage truck. And so if something happens to that small town is on the hook for that too. These risks extend beyond facilities. Last year, there was a home that burned in Woodbury. and that was confirmed caused by a lithium-ion battery. Also, for any of you that travel, TSA asks if you have those batteries with you when you're going through security. Now, for all the negatives, at the same time, batteries contain critical materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, and have real economic value and can be recovered and reused. Without improved collection, though, too many of these materials are lost to the waste stream. Our current law has not kept pace with modern technology. Counties are managing a growing problem with without the tools needed to do so safely and effectively. Counties have worked with industry, recyclers, and the state to develop a better approach. The Delete All Amendment reflects meaningful progress and has narrowed the disagreements to very few. And then, like was referenced earlier today in the Senate, an amendment was adopted to address things to even narrow it more. We recognize the complexity here and appreciate the committee's consideration. From a county perspective, this is a problem we're already managing every day, and this proposal will help us do that even better. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Amber Backhouse. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself, and then we have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Amber Backus, and I'm here on behalf of the National Waste and Recycling Association's Minnesota chapter. These companies handle collection, sorting, recycling, and disposal of residential and commercial waste in Minnesota. The NWRA is fully supportive of getting problematic materials such as lithium-ion batteries out of the waste stream, and we appreciate the work that Representative Hollins has done on this issue the past 3 years. Improper disposal of these batteries poses a significant and potentially deadly risk to NWRA company employees, their trucks, and facilities. And given that lithium-ion battery use is expected to increase 6-fold by 2030, it is crucial for Minnesota to establish a system for the proper collection and handling of small to medium portable batteries. NWRA is grateful also to the MPCA, AMC, and RECA for getting this conversation started and hosting stakeholder meetings over the interim to build consensus about what a battery stewardship program should look like. And while House File 1426 reflects most of those principles, it has been difficult to digest their application in the many-paged amendment that's before you. So we hope that Representative Hollins would be willing to work with us on some additional revisions to the legislation as it advances. A couple of suggestions that we would like to make today. Consumers respond best to take-back programs when standards are uniform to allow for clear and consistent messaging about how the program works. Therefore, we'd ask that the bill focus only on small and medium format batteries. As you heard, large format batteries are not the ones that end up in bins and pose safety issues, and their inclusion is the reason the bill imposes limits on how many batteries someone can bring to a drop-off site on page 25. And this reduces consumer convenience, which is one of the goals of the bill. We also would appreciate if language were added to ensure that those in the solid waste industry who still may end up receiving improperly disposed batteries, even though of the best efforts under this bill, we want to make sure those folks are shielded from violations. It's easy to spot and remove a car battery on the tip floor, but finding a battery the size of a nickel would be much harder to do. So we would appreciate some language here and do have some suggestions that we'd be willing to share on how to accomplish this. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to testify and share our support for getting batteries out of the waste stream and suggestions for improving the bill so it accomplishes its goal. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify for or against this bill? Not seeing any. Next, we have questions for members. Looking around, I'll go to Chair Heinzman then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe PCA could come up.
Welcome back. Go ahead, Chair Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that Mr. Kudelka is able to come up right fast, because I'm wondering where our dollars are going when it comes to solid waste tax. So how much does the state collect in solid waste tax per year? Where does it go? And how much of that money does the PCA get? And how much goes to counties to pay for their recycling programs?
Mr. Kadelka.
Mr. Chair and committee members, for the record, my name's Kirk Kadelka. I'm Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, so I will have to get back to the committee, unfortunately, but I can tell in general how it works. The solid waste management tax, 70% is put into the environmental fund, and then 27% goes to general fund, and a little more goes into what is a fund that's used for SCORE. It supplements what is done there. All those dollars are then appropriated by the legislature. Those are legislative decisions on how much goes to the SCORE grants for helping out these activities, or to the agencies, or to other activities. We can provide those information at a future date. I just don't have them at my fingertips.
Chair Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To my point, so members, I'm glad we're having this conversation today. It needs to be one that we work through. It is a bit of a challenge when we have a 34-page DE that arrived, I think, yesterday. And it does sound as though we're getting closer. I'm going to point out, though, and I was hoping that we had some more data to kind of drive my point home, but unfortunately I didn't think to ask yesterday so that Mr. Kadelka could have that. But our county landfill / recycling programs desperately need support. And at my house, I have the bin for the batteries, the bin for paint, the bin for aerosol cans that haven't been fully depleted or what have you. And then when it's landfill day, I take those things, we go to the landfill, go to each section of our recycling facility and make sure they all go to their appropriate site. It costs money, and a lot of people aren't even aware. They miss that in one way or another. But my county really works hard with a program to put a mailing out to every single resident. They even give you a discount at springtime when a lot of people are doing that kind of work. And this bill may be the answer, but I think there's also a lot of other things we could do to support counties in that effort. They're already deployed. 87 counties are working on this problem. And we recognize with the pictures, yep, there's a problem. What's the best way to get at it? Maybe it's this bill. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a combination of things. But I do think that the dollars are already there, and without the data, I can't necessarily say, well, this, that, or the other. But I will say that people want to do the right thing. They have the opportunity, but there are barriers. And with that support to counties, I think we'd have a really good opportunity to do that. And I wish, again, that we'd had a little bit more time to get through what was proposed yesterday and then before us today. It does take more than just one hearing to get through a 34-page document and understand the intricacies of that. So I'm glad the bill's being laid over. Conversations will continue.
Representative Hollins, if you'd like to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Heinzman, for that question / comment. I think it is an important conversation to have, and certainly the first iteration of the bill, not even the one before the DE, but years ago, was specifically about getting money to counties to do e-waste work, because we thought counties know best how to serve the people in their counties, right? Like, they know where there's population density, what people need, and industry really fought us tooth and nail on that, because they did not want, not about batteries, a different industry, because allowing that sort of freedom to the counties was pushed back on. So I'll say that, but then to address your concern now, what I will say is that, I mean, there's a reason why the Minnesota Association of Counties is here testifying and has been supportive and been a part of this conversation the entire time. And it's because counties, there are 87 counties, and asking each county to come up with its own recycling program or to fund its own battery recycling is really difficult, and they have to be contained in a very specific way. And the reality is, like, my county could probably do it, right? Ramsey County has enough population density to make it make sense. But if you go to a county that is less populous, then you've got fewer people and more space, and they're asked to create a program that is the same as Ramsey County's program. That's not gonna work, right? And so I believe, and I would invite, if I could, Maria Jensen up to talk about the cost effectiveness of doing it this way as opposed to county by county, because there really is a strong case to be made that this is actually much more cost effective and better for both counties as well as citizens.
Okay, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and assist in providing additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Maria Jensen for the record. I'm here with Clean Water Action and RECA, which is a business association for electronics recyclers across Minnesota. If passed, this bill would create a PRO, or a Product Responsibility Organization. In this case, the case of just the loose battery program, we already have one that's operating in the state of Minnesota right now. And batteries is unique as opposed to electronics. The PRO in this case takes control of the batteries, and they are able to actually sell the batteries that have value, and that subsidizes the program. So they're able to take the value of the recycling stream and incorporate that into the program and help pay for the costs of the overall collection system. So it is a very efficient way to handle this.
Okay, thank you. Also, from what I understand, Mr. Hagemeister might have some additional information that can help answer Chair Heinzman's question, one of Chair Heinzman's questions from earlier.
And I'll have more, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hagemeister.
Meyer. That's right. Mr. Chair, I have a few of the numbers that Representative Heinzman had asked about. In total, the solid waste tax is about $120 million a year right now. 70% of that goes to the environmental fund. That's about $85 million a year right now. The amount that goes up for SCORE grants is a direct appropriation in the Environment Finance Bill that was made last year and every 2 years. That's $18,450,000. And then there's a 3% that's in the tax bill. That's a statutory appropriation of 3%. That's about $3.6 million per year. So in total, it's like the $22 million that goes out to the county for the SCORE grants. I don't know how much each county gets. There's a distribution formula for that. I don't know it offhand, how much each individual county gets.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hagemeyer. Chair Heinzman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just, again, try to say it as plainly as I can. I've jotted down a few notes. I would hope that rather than creating new stewardship organizations for things like paint, electronics, packaging and paper, even boat wrap, we could build on what we already have, county-based recycling programs. And every time I turn around having conversation with counties, I'm hearing we are desperate for more SCORE grant dollars, support for these county-based recycling programs. I think that there may be a disagreement as to whether or not counties can roll that out in a scale for the Hennepin counties of the world versus maybe Aiken County. I actually think it's doable. So let's, like I said earlier, continue talking, but let's not suggest that we're trying to do the same thing in Hennepin County as we're trying to do in Aiken County, and that just won't work. We have to have a new program. We already have some things that are working really well, but they are not seeing a big enough piece of that $120 million to really get at the problem that they have and to have the resources they need to build it up. So we're going to see more legislation on this, I'm sure, next session. I hope that it moves towards supporting our counties with more dollars for SCORE grants, and I hope that they get a bigger piece of that $120 million that's already being collected. Thank you.
Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Heinzman. So what I will say is that counties currently on average are spending 48% of their SCORE dollars on electronics and batteries that are not being recycled. That's what's costing them so much. And if we had this bill in place, that would eliminate that cost for them, and they would have almost 50% more of their SCORE grants available to do other aspects of recycling and solid waste work. So I really do think this is a win-win. I will keep having conversations with you about this, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think members, and like I say often, the 12 people watching at home can see we're getting at, I think, some solutions here. But again, I'm glad the bill's being laid over. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Looking around, Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Hollins, what does RECA stand for?
Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Schwartz. I always forget. I'm going to turn to my testifier.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Maria Jensen. RECA stands for Recycling Electronics for Climate Action, and it's a business association that represents electronics recyclers such as Global E-Waste Solutions and others. So it's a private sector industry association.
Representative Schultz.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that additional answer. And then my question was maybe going to be for Mr. Hagemeyer. So if there's $120 million and $85 million of the solid waste tax is going to the environmental fund, what is being achieved by that $85 million?
Mr. Hagemeyer.
Mr. Chair, Representative Schultz, I mean, you can ask the agency what their achievements are if you'd like. I wouldn't want to speak to that for them.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you. So is that the Pollution Control Agency who can answer that?
I believe so. We will have them come up and give it a shot. Welcome, Mr. Johnson, to the committee. Please introduce yourself and respond the best you can to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and Representative Schultz, or I guess for the record, my name is Tom Johnson, Government Relations Director for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Representative Schultz, to your question, there are several revenue sources into the environmental fund. So some are more directly related exactly to the item that they're funding. For example, air fees cover directly the program costs for air. There are water fees that do not cover the full cost of water, but there are permit fees for that. There's the solid waste management tax that goes into there. There's the motor vehicle transfer fee that goes in. There are a small amount overall of the total, but penalties that the agency settles or fines that are assessed go into the environmental fund. So there are multiple revenue sources, and that overall environmental fund then funds mostly the agency's staff. So it would be almost the entirety of the agency's budget is funded through the environmental fund. There's pieces that come from the remediation fund, of course, and some federal dollars, but the grand majority of the agency's core base funding is through the environmental fund.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was very enlightening for me and hopefully for other members of the committee too, to understand how great of a role the environmental fund plays into your agency, and how I don't even know that we know as of this moment around this table, like what role the solid waste tax plays in that. But I think when we're talking about the solid waste tax, to the point that Chair Heinzman made moments ago, if we have this tax already, it appears like that should be more tailored towards this problem that Representative Hollins brings before us.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think that there has been an effort from the counties that the agency largely supports, that is there is a portion of the solid waste management tax, as Assistant Commissioner Kudelka mentioned, that goes to the general fund currently. And I think it's absolutely appropriate if the legislature were to decide that more of that money needed to go to solid waste activities. I think we're very supportive of that. The solid waste management tax, as it exists, started as two separate taxes, one of which funded agency activities, one of which was more directly funding other activities, and those were combined. And so the agency does have to have a revenue source that covers solid waste the solid waste regulatory activities and other pieces that the agency does. So there does need to be funds that support that work, but we do feel like there is a piece of this solid waste management tax that exists that goes to the general fund that I think could be used to support counties more if the legislature decided that was the something they wanted to accomplish.
Representative Schultz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and for our conversations for the rest of the session. This was helpful, and I'm going to call this good news that we can build upon and hopefully take and make solid, sound decisions with before the end of session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as this discussion goes, I think there might just be a little bit of confusion about what EPR, product stewardship programs, are and what they do and how they save taxpayers money. Pros such as the battery pro that we are working to build and strengthen, or even the ones that surround other products, like Representative Heinzman named a number of different pros that we have in this state. Other states and provinces and countries have pros for many other things. That directly takes that money that we make counties in Minnesota do this work. People talk about a lack of service because counties just don't have enough money. The SCORE grants are not funding counties adequately to provide for that recycling. So when we have more pros to actually address this waste issue, whether be it packaging, be it batteries, be it e-waste, be it, even things like mattresses or carpeting, that actually takes that pressure off of the county and holds the people who are responsible and creates a responsibility mechanism for that waste. So it really does help actually fund our programs and relieve that pressure on taxpayers. So not only is Representative Hollins doing that with this bill, she's also helping our counties and solid waste management organizations save money by preventing these fires. I don't know if people actually were in Rice County when that fire was happening, but I was in Rice County. I have asthma. I really struggle with smoke from that. It was very hard to be in Rice County visiting a friend of mine who happened to live in Northfield because the fire was so bad. I know Eureka is based in my district. They're a company. They have had trucks catch on fire. When there's a fire on the tipping room floor or in a MRF or something, that is money that we all have to pay because this is in a lot of ways public infrastructure. It might be private infrastructure, but our county money is still going to support those MRFs. So I think this is actually a really financially responsible bill. This is a bill that'll save your taxpayers money, and it'll just make the world a better place because we won't be breathing in literal garbage fires because these batteries are just catching on fire. So I really want to thank you. I think it's good that we're having a discussion about how to save money and recycle more. We also have a lot of money that come from these responsible end markets, of which we heard of all of the different ways we need these materials to avoid getting them from other countries or even in, imperiled landscapes in the United States. This is a win-win-win bill for Minnesota. I don't know how many more times you can say the word win, but you could probably. So thank you, Representative Hollins, for working on this bill. And thank you for your attention to EPR programs.
Looking around, not seeing any further. Representative Hollins, I will say thank you for bringing the bill forward. It's obviously addressing a serious problem that we have out there that currently is not being solved, and I appreciate the fact that you're bringing people together and figuring out the best way to get it. This does not solve the entire problem. This is just the standalone batteries. We still have embedded batteries and other products that we still have to deal with, which also cause fires out there. So I want to make people understand is this is just the start of addressing the problem. There's more that's going to have to be done. I appreciate Representative Hollins' willingness to continue. Any final words, Representative Hollins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After that, and Representative Jordan's, I got nothing else to say. It's a win-win-win-win-win. And I think people are going to appreciate it, and it really gets at the idea that counties have to deal with waste. You want to talk about unfunded mandates, we're asking them to deal with things that didn't exist 20 years ago. And now they are still using the same amount of money to try to deal with a problem that didn't exist. There's a way to fund this. We can do it. I'll earn your support eventually. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hollins. I will renew my motion that House File 1426 as amended will be laid over. The bill is laid over as amended. And with that, we are adjourned.